Dr. Yak Lindy, thank you for joining me on the show. For those people that might not be aware of what you do, apart from being world-class dentist, but dentist is not just the word, right? You do a whole lot more. Like, would you describe your practice and what you do?
Yeah, well, dentistry in the sense of the word is obviously to treat anything that is intraoral, being inside the mouth, teeth, gums, tongue, soft tissue, whatever else it is. But we kind of see it as peri-oral rejuvenation, which is also surrounding the mouth, like, lips and cheeks and facial form, and also positioning of the teeth. There's a whole host of factors when it comes to an aesthetic appeal, and that's the nature of my practice. Yes, and when you walk in, you get the feel that it's somewhere that's a little bit more distinctive than your general dentistry.
Yeah.
It's very aesthetic. We pride ourselves in giving that patient the experience that is somewhat sets ourselves apart from general dentistry, because you mentioned the word dentist or dentistry, and
I never know if I'm offending, because you're a professional, and I'm like,
I hate the dentist.
Go to Bedford Dental Care was where they can find you, but just to sort of paint the picture, we're not here to talk about teeth.
Yeah,
we are,
dentistry.
but
we have them, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you'll be attempting to climb Mount Everest, and we will get there. But how we met is, I'm paranoid when it comes to dentists, drills. I've just had bad experiences throughout my life, and actually Sam Herbst, who runs another podcast out of here, The Great Equalizer, recommended you, and she's like, you've got to go. Dr. Yak is fantastic. It was still when you were at your old premises.
Yeah, I remember Samantha. She's had a kid.
I'm like terrified of I think it's definitely a mental thing, because I like the pain, it's fleeting, it's the injections, that sort of thing, and I like floss almost too much in a way, just because of the paranoia that I have. But when I met you, I was like, okay, this is great, because you immediately put me at ease. We were calm. It was great. There was no pain. And we've continued our relationship. And when I had my little emergency over the weekend, thank you for sorting me out on Monday. And that's when you dropped the bomb on me and went, oh, do you know that I'm doing Everest? I was like, I haven't had enough coffee on a Monday morning. But now it's the second time within a year that you're going back to Mount Everest.
Yeah.
What did you do on your first? Was it just to sort of suss it out, see, or was that an attempt? Or tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I went to leave some crumbs up there, so if I get lost, then I know how to get back home. No, there was always this intention of me going to the Himalayas. It's in my name, Yak. For those of you that don't know,
there's
an
link.
Animal that only exists in those parts. In fact, I've got a profile picture on my Facebook as a joke of a yak from the Himalayas, the animal, and then I drew a picture of myself as an animated cartoon sitting on the yak. That was my profile picture for many years, and it was a yak within a yak. And I never was interested in climbing Everest at that particular stage, but I always had an interest in Nepal, for that matter, and especially Kathmandu. There's a Hardy Boy series, and one of the first books of theirs was the adventures to the Himalayas, and obviously a climb. And for some reason, I remember Tintin being part of that. And
I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Yeah.
Both Hardy Boys and Tintin.
Yeah.
Not just because I'm ginger.
Yeah. So you could actually pass as a Tintin if ever they make a movie. Well, I think they have, and they cost.
I had to tin them down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I was too busy with the podcast.
It was the accent, maybe. Yeah. So they had a friend that actually lived in Kathmandu, and the way they described it at the beginning of the book, I was like, wow, this place is amazing, like in the mountains and the jungle, and the animals and the height and the altitude and the risk and the danger. And for those of you who know me, I'm not averse to danger and adventurous situations, let's call it that. So that's where it sparked my interest. And then last year, let's start before that. I did the Otter Trail with my cousins the year before that. It was 2020. And we waited a long time to get this done. Sorry, 2022.
It's a fantastic race, by the way.
Yeah, the Otter is amazing.
Yeah.
Not the race, the hike. People who do the race. Yeah, that's superhuman. And it was really amazing. And there's one particular stage that I had to cross the Bloberg River. And it was more so to do with me not being very well prepared for it. crossed the river, but actually went up the wrong path, and it was a very dangerous route. But I managed to get up there, and I actually thought to myself, how do they allow people to do this? And then I realized, well, that's why you sign all that indemnity, that you pass on there, it's not anybody else's fault but yourself. So I did that, and I really, really enjoyed the risk of that. And I wanted to do something more intense, and a lot of people said, why don't you try Kili? And I did some research and stuff on Kili, and it didn't really suit my fancy. And I applied for Everest, and
so you have to apply.
Yeah, you got to apply.
So, I mean, forgive me. I know very little about this process. I know Kilimanjaro, it's a lot more straightforward.
Yeah.
But so there's an application you fill out to climb Mount Everest?
Yeah. So I'm going through a company called Pioneer Expedition. They're a Nepalese-based expedition company, and you can choose to go through specific companies. However, each company's got their prerequisite. It's not mandated by law.
Mm-hmm.
However, they've got to make the application to the Nepalese government on your behalf.
I see.
So there's a few climbs that are sort of a prerequisite. A lot of them suggest Aconcagua in Argentina, and a few other 8,000 meters, or them just sort of verifying your capability. So last year I went over to Everest. I managed to get this. It was out of climbing season, but we got there. That's where I actually met this company, Pioneer Expedition, and the owner of the company, Tenji. Very hands-on guy. He's there. He's climbing with you. He's a Sherpa. He owns the company, but he's also a Sherpa. And then I decided, these guys are going to be. I met them at base camp, and I realized, you know what, they're taking me on a tour here, and they've just basically been going up and down the mountain in their rotation, but they have the time enough in their day to still be hospitable and accommodating, and I really liked his energy, so I decided to join them. But I also did Lobuche Peak, which is just there on Everest as well, about 6,800 meters, somewhere about there, if I stand to be corrected, and about the same as Camp 2, and that's how I got involved last year. And then I thought to myself, wow, I'm in the icefall, I'm in the Khumbu icefall, and I'm actually doing all of this, and it's strenuous, and it's quite a lot, but it's manageable. It's something that if you apply yourself and if you train toward, you can get it done.
Yeah.
It's not something that has a physical limitation that's out of the bounds of what can be prepared for. If you can prepare for something, you can get it done.
Your training and preparation, obviously, that's a lot. I mean, from the gear to having the right company. I mean, the Sherpas deserve so much credit for the amazing work that they do, the stuff they've seen to make these ascents possible. But give us an idea. You told me, I know you're a busy man. You're running a full-time dentistry practice. You up at 4 training. What's the training been like? Has it been cardio? Has it been functional training, strength training? Give us an idea of what it takes to go into this. We obviously have a lot of athletes on this podcast, but this is a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a whole host of factors here that you got to train for, from the technical aspect of how to use, your rope ascenders, and how to sort of balance out what your weight capacity is. And keeping your center of gravity to cardio, because you are going to be exerting a lot of pressure. You're going oxygen, and then it comes to your lung function, and specifically the lung function, like an emphasized lung function. So last year, I wasn't training to summit. I was just training to go as high up as I could. So I had a oxygen regulator mask that I would use. And I was doing basically my own research and my own training. I've subsequently come in contact with a company called Aerofit. Yeah, you can see them. That's the logo if you want to research them.
These are the companies that make this whole thing possible, right?
Yeah, so they're a part of my sort of sponsorship, and also the who I'm climbing on behalf of, and I will get to that. But Aerofit is basically a device that it's got a mouthpiece, and it's connected to a somewhat looks like a regulator that is also kitted out with an apparatus that has a bit of software in it and actually connects to your phone. So I got in contact with Mike Bennett, who is, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but he's the technical advisor for this company. I think they're based out of Denmark or Switzerland. He's from New Zealand. But it basically measures your tidal volumes and your inspiratory and expiratory outputs to actually determine what your lung function is. And it gives you real-time information on your phone, which also can be sort of transferred to a person of your choosing, being it a pulmonologist or someone that is in the know of what lung function should be. And you can instantaneously, it's got presets that you can actually train your lung capacity. So it's actually measured in sort of retrospect about what is your base value norm. So this is a question that I get asked, how accurate is it? It doesn't have to be that accurate with regards to what the baseline measurements are, but it's comparing you to yourself.
Yeah.
So the accuracy, is actually there. And that, from an experience perspective, is what will make a difference of a safe, prepared climb as opposed to not. Because we can't just do, even though I do strength and weight training combined with calisthenics, lung function is actually very important, because in that atmosphere, or lack thereof, your body is basically in an anaerobic state.
That's crazy to think.
Yeah.
So it's all the elements are against you, basically.
Yeah.
Everything is trying to stop you from summiting this
Precisely.
incredible peak. But your medical background, I'm sure, does play a role in this, that you know what I mean? Because I think by interpreting the data, for example, and knowing your body and how to react in certain situations, that surely is an advantage for you on this adventure, this quest.
Yes, no, definitely. My limited medical knowledge. If I have a person next door to me who's got toothache, I can try and help them out, but probably not as well. Not like you have any tools. I have an ice pick, maybe that might work. But yeah, and then we do. I mean, I do have a baseline knowledge of what it is to interpret, certain situations. But it's not even about that. A lot of people ask me, how do you know whether or not you're capable enough of doing this? And therein lies what your safety capacity is, because it's your own body that you need to sort of listen to and rely on. And you need to know when to sort of turn back or take a rest or descend, as opposed to, looking at your watch and saying, oh, my oxygen partial pressure and the saturation is perfect and I'm just going to carry on, because that can be okay. But whether or not you actually have the capacity to is something that's very, I think, intrinsic to everybody. Knowing yourself and knowing your body. Yeah.
Is there a space, especially because from a mental fortitude point of view, and that sort of inner dialogue that you'll be having, no doubt, with yourself as you're going up, is there space for like a psychologist to come in, or someone as a mental coach to sort of, because as you say, you're going up 8,000 odd meters to the most dangerous place in the world. Everything is trying to stop you. And forgive me, I'm not trying to put you off, because I know you but looking from the outside, I'm going, oh my goodness, are you crazy, man? But there's this sense of drive I can see in you. Getting back to how much of a mental side is this to this? Because physiologically, I understand your body's going to go through a lot. That's why you train. That's why you have all the data. But mentally, that's probably where that difference comes between managing to summit and sometimes saying, well, I can't actually carry on here.
Yeah, it's a very, very fine line between, what your psyche is instantaneously at that moment, making decisions, because you are there's no oxygen. You're not really functioning, and the part that's scary at most is, and I'll tell you what happened when I was at about 6,800 meters so long or so out at Camp 2. I made this video when we had to turn back, and I'm like just talking and I'm chilling and whatever it is, and then I sent it to someone, and I can't remember who it was. That's how it's foggy it actually is. And then it was a LOL that was, or a laughing face or something that was replied to me, and I'm like, why is this person laughing? This is a serious moment here. And then I didn't think too much about it. And then on the plane back, I'm going through all of this stuff, and I played that video again. It made absolutely no sense. Yeah. And that is the scary part,
Yeah.
because in that particular moment, you think that you are functioning correctly. However, the mistakes that you make, I mean, in a normal cognizant body, if I drop this cup over and things are spilling over, I know that that's a mistake and I will deal with it. In a particular frame of mind that is so deprived of oxygen, if I knock this cup over and it starts going, I'll ignore it because I think that that's something that's okay, and I'll just carry on going as to what I think my brain is actually understanding in that situation. That is why a lot of people, from the the research that I've done, have lost their lives.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much so about them not being capable, but it's making decisions that have been subpar with regards to their safety net.
Are you getting sleep at night? Because if I was in your boots going up Everest, I'd be thinking about everything that potentially could happen up there, good and bad.
Yeah.
And that would probably just overwhelm my sort of thought process all the time. Maybe share some insights, as much as you want to, obviously, but
No, of course.
I'm sure that you've got, like, there has to be doubts, or there has to be, like, what's the driving force? I know you're climbing for a very, very good cause, and that is obviously what puts the fire in your belly to do this. But at night when you go to bed and you're going, Sherbet, in a few weeks' time or a month's time, wherever it may be, I could well be standing on the highest point on the earth, as close to space as humanly possible.
Yeah. So, yes, there is a lack of sleep to answer that question, but it lies in my name, insomnia. I'm an insomniac. The emphasis on the yak. So that's something that's always been happening. So I guess I'm basically using this to my advantage, because on average I probably get about 3 to 5 hours of sleep a night, and that's intermittent as well. It's not a one particular goal, but if I got to be waking up at 4 in the morning anyway, I might as well use that time to be doing something that is, close to me and that actually inspires me and gives me that drive. So I am using that to my advantage, the time that I do have by not sleeping. But then also at the same time, what actually, I think your question is more so to do with the psyche behind not sleeping and keeping me awake. And yes, there is the various risks with climbing this mountain. That are variable, and it's not, you can prepare as much as you want, but there are things like avalanches that are, it's so common that us as South Africans, when you hear about an avalanche, you think about a movie, and it's like a freak incident, and it's very few and far between. Well, while I was there now in Everest in September last year, it was like how we get thunderstorms. They just get avalanches. You just hear stuff in the distance, a big rumble, and you look there and you see a puff of cloud that's happening. And then you think to yourself, what happens if I'm in this path and that happens? And it's one of those things. And that's exactly, you can sort of predict a little bit about, where you can sort of send your rope into, but all of these are fixed lines, so it's not like you have an option anyway.
Yeah.
But when there's a snow dump, for example, last year, and there was a blizzard that actually had to turn us back, there's a lot of snow that gets dumped in a very short space of time. So that whole sort of serac, forgive my terminology, I don't know, Neil, if he'll be watching this, he's a technical trainer. Yeah,
He'll leave comments on the YouTube.
Yeah, like, failed.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so that gets too heavy and it actually collapses in on itself, and that causes a serac. So you can't really sort of figure out if that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And those are the risks that I'm worried about. Earthquakes, for example. Nepal had its the largest earthquake in 2015. There's a very good documentary on Netflix, but sensationalist the way they came about it. But it shows you exactly what can happen when there's an earthquake on the mountain, and obviously in Nepal, unfortunately, they had to go through that scenario in 2015. But yeah, there's so many factors that keep you awake. But the essence of the climb is more so about the adventure.
Yeah.
And even that walk up from landing in the most dangerous airport in the world called Lakla Airport. That's on the side of a mountain. And if you've seen any videos of that, you must just Google some stuff.
It's a movie. It actually is a movie. This whole thing is a movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many movies that have been made about it already. But from there to, just walking up to base camp, it's surreal.
What are you experiencing there?
Yeah.
I mean, you said it's surreal, but are you like, I'm a step closer to, which is a dream, which is something that, I will cherish for the rest of my life, and I'm doing it for a good cause.
Yeah.
Like, and what does it look like there at base camp? Give us an idea of what it actually looks like. I mean, for people who, like myself, I mean, Tyler keeps saying that she wants to do Everest. Her mom wants to go and climb Everest.
Yeah.
So she's going to be watching this too. But
Yeah.
what does it look like? What does it feel like?
It looks really boring.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. It looks like it just looks like someone's old house that's like really, really dusty. Because you think, I mean, it's a glacier. It's the beginning of the glacier. That's where the base camp
Yeah.
is. And you'd think that you'd see these huge piles of ice, basically, and like snow and whatever it is. But it looks like gravel, like sand, basically. And it's covering. There's a few videos that I don't even know if I've uploaded. No, it's on my Instagram, actually.
It just looks like a whole lot of dust and rock, but it's actually ice. You'll be able to see little snippets of the ice through there. It's just covered with this rock and dust, but all of this is actually ice.
It's covered in this dust and this rock, and underneath you can actually see that there is a big ice block there, or like snow, basically. And then because I was there in summer, there was like rivers that actually run through there. You can see them actually flowing down. But you're walking on this, and it just sort of collapses under your feet because it's soft and it's like sludge. But then when you get really close and you're actually walking in the Khumbu icefall, which is where base camp starts, well, the base camp, bottom of the base camp, the bottom of the Khumbu, which is where base camp is, then you can actually see what you're walking on, and it's basically, like a mushroom that grows out like this, and you're walking on the top of the mushroom, and underneath the melting ice cuts out and carves these sort of rivers that flow all the way down to the bottom of the glacier, which is about maybe a few kilometers long. It's not the longest in the world, but it doesn't look very appealing. If you don't like dust, yeah.
There's no cheerleaders going, welcome, no. And there it is. There's a big arrow pointing to the top.
No, of course. And there's a cosmetic base camp, basically, that people hike to. And it's just a big rock where someone has spray painted base camp.
No way.
I promise you. And then the actual base camp proper, which is maybe about a kilometer up after that. And that's where all the expedition companies set up their camps. So it doesn't look like much at all. But that's just on ground level.
Yes, yeah.
When you've got clear skies and you look up, there's a video of this on my Instagram. It's absolutely
Just
surreal.
give us your handle. Just give us your Instagram.
Oh, it's Yak Lindy. It's just my
cool.
name. YAKLINDY. And it's surreal because when you're looking at mountains, you in a wide angle lens, it almost looks, I don't know, if you put it into perspective from a size perspective, it looks like almost doable. It looks like, it's pretty cool. It looks fun and whatnot, but it's quite concise. When you're standing in front of this thing, and you can't actually see summit, by the way, the mountain is, you're in the middle of a sort of a 3D puzzle. So when you look up, you're seeing certain faces of the mountain, but you can't see it because it does this, and then it goes and it does that. So it's actually hidden away, quite well. But you got to actually turn your head from left to right in order to get the enormity. And even then, you still can't make sense of where you are. If I can tell you this, and we had a bit of bad weather last year in September, but the one morning we get up, and then my Sherpa knocked on my door and he's like, come, have a look. And we went down to breakfast, and I looked in the sky. He's like, no, first look there. You look in the sky, and it's how we experience a sunrise. But there's a distinct shadow that's halfway in the sky, in darkness. It's unbelievable actually.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And then you turn around, and then the sun is rising, and the mountain is casting that shadow that's blocking half of the sky.
Wow.
And then you realize what this is the size of where you actually are.
And it dawns on you that it's actually unreal.
Yeah, it sunsets on you, sunrises on you. Yeah.
But I'm curious to know what are you expecting, because you have to obviously have expectations, like that day one when you set off and it's all clear and it's good to go. What are you expecting along the way? What I mean by that is, and I suppose it's difficult because you haven't done it yet, but you've at least sort of been there to sort of see that this is what lies ahead. What are you expecting on this journey? Because I'm sure there'll be some self-discovery that goes on too. There'll be a lot of questions asked, but what are you expecting of this journey, this adventure?
Yeah, so I can tell you from the expectations of what I was given, because I've got a detailed sheet.
Okay.
Like day sheets in order to describe what my lifestyle is going to be there.
Okay. So they expect you to be at a certain point by a certain day.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is quite
it's
stringent in terms of
it's very stringent
the
with regards to
objectives.
time frames.
I've got you.
Yeah, there's certain days, there's certain times allocated to training in the Kumbu ice floor, and then there's something called rotations where you actually go up, camp one, climatize, come back down, and all of that. But it's also going to be very, very weather dependent. So
Okay.
my expectation is, and I've never sort of, I mean, weather is an act of God. So you can't really, if you be disappointed by something, by an act of God. But for the first time, I'm actually thinking to myself, please let there be good weather in order for me to get this done safely, go up and then come back down safely. Because the worst thing that I'd want to have an experience is being up at Camp 3 and then we get bad weather and then you're kind of stuck there. Because when you get this bad weather, it's not like you can just go up and down. You have to anchor and stay in a safe zone.
Tents and all sorts. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's not very fun. I mean, I've used a down suit when I was in Kathmandu now, and I've gotten my down suit now from First Ascent here in South Africa. I want to actually do everything quite proudly South African and also proudly Nepalese. That's why I'm using a local-based company that side. But it's very uncomfortable in that down suit. Well, for me, using it in moderately fair temperatures, which is our South African and Kathmandu temperatures. But if you're stuck in a place that's minus 27 and you've got to be there overnight, and this down suit's meant to just kind of keep you alive, not keep you comfortable, it's going to be very difficult.
You just blew my mind there a little bit. Keep you alive.
Yeah.
Not warm or comfortable.
Not warm.
Keep you alive.
Keep you alive, yeah.
That's
basically.
crazy. My word.
Yeah. So, I mean, even the training that we're doing now, Neil, I was actually meant to be training this afternoon.
Sorry, Neil. Apologies, my bad.
No. It's, Neil's very accommodating. He's the chairperson of the South African Outdoor Academy.
Okay.
And he's been training me from a technical perspective. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. I mean, it's not if you're doing any serious climbs or whatever it is, but even if you are, quite an outdoor person, it's good to get this sort of background.
Absolutely.
In order to do local hikes and knowing what to do in a particular situation, and also experiencing things for the purposes of what they are, which is adventure. So yes, thanks and sorry, Neil. We're going to be training in a fridge, in a very, very big fridge that is going to be dropping the temperature down quite low in order for us to try and sort of replicate conditions.
This is, I mean, you're essentially an athlete here because, as I've said before, we've had some of the top athletes in the country here on the show, and it's like all this incredible amount of work for one thing.
For something.
You know what I'm saying? So like spending time in the fridge, it's the climbing, the cardio, all these things just for this time. How long does it take, if all goes according to plan, which it will, I'm confident of that, from bottom to top and back down? Because you said there's rotations, there's acclimatizing, so is it a couple of weeks or Break it down for us.
It's minimal of a month.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can go up to 2 months.
I see.
Yeah, but it's, as I said, it's all sort of weather dependent. But I'm going to be there for a month, from the time I land in Kathmandu till the time I get back to
I hope
Kathmandu.
your patients know. I've taken
Well,
notes.
maybe.
I can't have any tooth emergencies.
Yeah, well, Dr. P is going to be around,
Okay.
so that's good.
So up to 2 months. I mean,
to 2 months.
that's a long time.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, I suppose it's something that you've now are chasing. You're doing it for the good cause. Tell us about the cause behind this, because it can't just be that Dr. Yak Lindy wants to climb Everest. There has to be something attached to that to give you that drive.
No, of course. I'll give you a brief history. So last year when I did climb, a lot of companies, a lot of businesses or patients actually, suggested, why don't you do something for a good cause? But you don't even know where to start. Setting up an NPO and doing all of this stuff, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of legislation that goes behind it. So you can't just say, I want to do this for that. You got to do stuff, especially when people give you money. I mean, with all the corruption that we are going through as a society, the last thing I want to do is to be given money and then I don't know how to account for it one day because it's still sitting in my bag, for example.
Yeah.
So it was too much of a short time frame, and I thought, no, and it's not even, it's something that significant. We're trying to go to summit. So I didn't acquiesce to their request, but when I got back, one of my patients, put me in touch with Angela Young. So she's the founder and director of the Impilo Foundation, which is a foundation for the awareness of gender-based violence. And she's got her own personal story that I found quite inspiring. So this person put me in touch with it. She's also got her own jewelry company. She's a jewelry designer. And we got in touch. She was also climbing at that stage. She was going up to base camp, Everest base camp, and also climbed Island Peak as well, together with Saray Komolo. This is the first African
maker.
woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so we got in touch, and I think just from an energetic perspective, I thought we aligned and we got along very well. And I believed in her cause. I believed in what she was actually doing. And, during my ComServe years and post-ComServe years working in the public sector in Mpumalanga, there was a maxillofacial department that I actually used to work in Nelspruit. And, I used to see firsthand what the consequences of this particular form of violence is. Besides it being just traumatic from a physical perspective, the mental trauma that these subjects of this form of violence actually have to go through, it's so difficult because it's also basically, it's a shame and it's a cultural norm that's perpetuated this in most circumstances, and it's difficult to break from that cycle. So, you see this in a patient comes in and then they ask and they tell you, I slipped and I fell, or I turned something, opened the car door and I got hit on that side of the face, and it doesn't really make sense. And you go into your own CSI mind of trying to figure out what's actually going on. But then you got to help this person from such a superficial perspective, in that you just have to treat them for their injuries, but you can't do really much more than that. You can try and sort of suggest social worker and try and get them help, but it's got to be intrinsic. It's got to come from that intention. And I believe, like, as a male, who are predominantly the perpetrators of this form of crime, because that's exactly what it is. It's not enough to say, I'm not an offender and I believe in the cause. I think there needs to be education and re-education and unlearning about certain norms and all this inculcation of these malaligned values that are creating all of this. So men need to actively stand against this. And this is why I chose to actually join Angela's cause and actually, trying to create this awareness for this particular project. Yeah.
Well, they're doing amazing work.
Yeah,
and
so
I
this
think
is
it's an incredible,
Foundation. Yeah.
We'll get a
And-
shot of that on our several cameras we've got. Yeah, thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, these
Very
cameras
good.
are amazing. by
Pretty
the way.
cool,
You
yeah.
Take one of them up with me.
When you get back, we'll talk about that. But so when do you leave, and what is the sort of initial sort of when you leave? And maybe because Everest has this thing where there are still bodies up there, and forgive me for leaning towards the morbid side of things, but the reality is that the people go up and just don't come down, and their bodies are still up there, you know.
That's why I'm training in the fridge.
No, I get that. But is it a case of like when you leave, you're still in touch with family, friends, that sort of thing when you go, or you know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure the family and friends will want to track your journey and see how you're doing and make sure you get back safely.
Yeah. I mean, so last year, the Wi-Fi is pretty good up there.
Okay.
In thing. Take note, South African networks. It's good up until base camp, and at base camp they've got emergency sort of communication services. So it's all geosatellite technology past a town called Namche Bazaar as you trek up towards base camp. But then, well, from camp 2 to camp 4, the communication is relayed through base camp and then out. So there's no direct communication, but obviously you get GPS systems and communications where it's not like you can make a phone call, but there's ping applications that you can use and preset messages that you can actually inform your family that,
Okay.
you know, that you are okay and this is where you are right now or whatever it is. But I think it's, well, number one, it's super expensive. Wow,
Sure.
you think our data is off the hook. Well, data price is okay right now, but it's super, super expensive
Yeah.
because you're using satellite technology, and it's not like satellites have a route that needs to go past Everest. No, it's a very particular niche group of people that are climbing there. So there's no emphasis given into communications in the region. So yeah, there is, while we're talking about it, even power at base camp.
Okay.
And then past that, I mean, it's all solar power, but then past that, it's all like a power bank type of thing where you
Okay.
take up things and you try and you know get get footage.
And food wise and things like that, obviously that's predetermined. You have like packs that, you know, the Sherpas have been doing this for many, many decades. And obviously nutrition and that is key because you need to replenish, you have to put fuel in the body.
Yeah.
It's a key element to this ascent.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, base camp is a fully fledged kitchen. And you get all your set meals a day, and there's coffee and tea and
Thank goodness there's coffee.
yeah, and their interpretation of pizza, which is like it's like a paratha Indian type thing with this like vegetables on it, which is really good. Yeah, I introduced them to dirty chai latte the last time
good man,
I was
good
there.
man.
Yeah, and I couldn't understand. I'm like, come on, guys, you invented like the chai part of it, and you have coffee, just mix the two. And see
Absolutely.
What happens. They're like, took the South African Indian to come and teach us how to. They loved it, but yeah, at base camp there's a fully fledged kitchen, and then as you go up, I mean, there are make-do kitchens. I mean, you climb with your Sherpa, so then you are basically carrying your food and everything up into those camps, and then you consume as you are. There's no set times.
Yeah.
I mean, on summit push day or night, you got to kind of you want to be there at the peak sunrise. You actually get light, which means most of the time you're starting at like 2, 3 in the morning. So there's no day and night.
Yeah.
Your sleep cycle is very erratic. You get to a particular camp and you know you need to be up or you need to have a rest period of that amount of time. You go to sleep, you eat and you go to sleep immediately, and you get up and then you climb again. So there's no real breakfast, lunch, supper.
Yeah.
It's all just basically what you
No
have
Mr.
on
D
you.
up there either.
Yeah. Uber Eats would not function, especially with the signal. The driver would be driving in a circle.
No, you're not going to get your food. But when you eventually get to the top, what are you planning to do? I mean, is it...
Take a nap.
No, sure, but you know, are people like staking flags or selfies, or how are you going to document that moment? You know, because it's history. It's
Yeah.
you're one of a select few, an exclusive club that have
Yeah.
got to the top.
I wouldn't call it exclusive club. There's a misnomer, and there's it's sad the way the whole publicity of people who actually get to the top have actually developed this in the recent years, then almost a negative connotation
Okay.
that it's an ego based sort of motivation, but it does take a lot. But then at the same time, you don't. It's not about yourself. It's
Okay.
about everyone around you. It's about your Sherpa. It's about fellow climbers. And this is something, I mean, I'm sure you would have seen the Nimsdai documentary
Mm-hmm.
or 14 Peaks on Netflix. And a lot of people pay a lot of money to go there and to get this stuff done. But wherein I think lies the differentiation between egos, how hard you actually say, yes, I want to do this, and you make sure that it gets done, as opposed to let's enjoy this as a group. Not that you are climbing with other people, but yourself and your Sherpa.
The adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that being said, when I get up there, I don't think there is regulation now to not leave anything
Okay.
in that area. Although there's a Nepalese prayer flag that I think is up there already, and you can take your stuff up there. However, I was thinking about it on the way here. There's no like rock or stone or whatever it is. It would be nice to bring something back down. And while I was there now, I went to a monastery, and I was chatting to a monk, and he says that, I mean, it's Everest's, the true name of Everest is called Sagarmata, which means the Holy Mother. And the people of that region believe that this is, their god. And it's almost a form of disrespect if you go there and litter, well, obviously, but also take something away.
Okay.
And by take something away, they mean rock or stone or the land, they call it. It's a specific Nepalese Sanskrit word. And then I was like, how can I get around this? Well, first of all, there's no rock or stone in there. What if I take a small little tube and I pack it in with some snow and I bring it back?
Yeah.
And then you have an auction for it, and then you're like, yeah, people can bid on this from the highest place on earth, and then all the proceeds go towards charity or towards a foundation.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. However, I need to find out what the regulation is.
Fair enough.
If they say don't take any stone, does the water count? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to evaporate, or it's going to sort of
it's going to turn into water, the
something
snow.
at some point. So yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, but I guess to answer your question, what am I going to do up there? No, I haven't thought about it as yet.
You'll have some time though to think. I'm sure.
I'm going to be thinking about how to get up there.
Do you think it's going to change you as a person? Like, I mean, there must be elements of you that will change, or enrich you, or So I don't know quite how to ask this, but I'm sure an experience like that is life changing.
I guess so, but I wouldn't actually know up until I do it.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
I can get it. I mean, I can understand from other people's perspective when they say, yes, this changed me for the better, and you get these long, drawn-out, verbose answers that doesn't make sense most of the time because you can't really, relate to them. But I guess I'll only know once I do it.
So we're going to have to get you back on
Yes,
the show,
yeah,
of course, when
part
you've done
two.
it. But I've got to ask you, just
Yeah.
before we wrap in a minute or two, you think of Hillary and his crew that went up. I mean, I read that book, or there's been numerous books about it, and you go like, oh my goodness, these guys did it with
Yep.
the limited technology.
Yeah.
I mean, it was phenomenal. And I'm sure you'll have a greater appreciation once you've summited and come down of what they did.
Yeah.
I just think those pioneers back in the day just set the bar so high, if you know what I mean. Because I know it's still difficult, but we have got technology. We have got Sherpas. I know they had their assistance, but it's not anywhere near what you guys have.
Not at all. I mean, look, the technology and things are available right now. For example, there's Sender, which is what actually grips onto the rope that assists you in actually climbing. They didn't have all of that. They didn't really have crampons. They climbed without oxygen. And it makes you think from how did these pioneers actually, first of all, know that's the highest place? What if they were climbing this and there's like another mountain somewhere else that was like a meter higher and they did all this for nothing? But if you think about everything that we do from every aspect of our lives, for example, me, placing an implant. Imagine the first guy that was sitting there like, this guy's missing a tooth. Let me take a nail and I'll bang it into his jaw and I'll leave it there and then we'll load something onto it afterwards. Or the first person that said, that tooth's painful, let me take a ply and rip it out and see if it alleviates the pain, cause a little bit more pain to alleviate pain. So it makes you think about the whole pioneering aspect of life in general, all these people that did things for the very, very first time, and how difficult it must be for them. And then you think right now where we are as a person and as humanity, it's more about revolutionizing and refining ourselves in order to be more adaptable to what we are subjected to. So therein I think lies our minds more than matter. And if we can actually do better and achieve better by tweaking the systems that we already have, not just sending a person, I guess, to Mars or wherever else it is, but changing ourselves. And maybe our changing ourselves doesn't really mean the tangible things like working out or whatever it is, but just being better humans and just treating each other better. We might actually get this place to be better for our future generations.
Yeah, as someone who's lived in various countries throughout his career, that's exactly it. And I've always said South Africa is a beautiful yet broken country.
Yes, yeah.
We need inspirational people. Yeah, we need people that inspire. And you're one of those people, and you're doing it for a wonderful cause. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Yak. And where can people follow your journey? Is there a website, or is it purely on your Instagram? Where's the best place to track you and see where you are?
I think it probably will be Instagram at this particular moment. We are setting up a few other avenues maybe to try, but the easiest would actually be Instagram. This is the sponsorship jacket, so there was meant to be a QR tag here, which it was very funny when they actually made it and they did a test on another piece of material and they took a photo of the QR tag. It went to somewhere completely different. So we didn't want to get it printed on the jacket. But yeah, you can follow me at Yak Lindy. That's YAKLINDY. And yeah, I'll be posting as often as I can be. And Dwayne, our cinematographer there behind the camera, will be behind it. You can follow him as well, Dwayne Wiggle. And he'll be the guy behind the team that's going
How's his training going?
He's got to follow me. Last week Friday we had training, and for a white guy to complain that it was hot and me in all of this gear, you can imagine things are difficult.
Well, Dr. Yak, we wish you all the best. God bless, safe travels, and we can't wait to hear the story when you get back.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Good to be here. Thanks. Yes.